Welcome back to another episode of College Football Game Day live presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. I am your host, Thor Nystrom. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Mike Farrell, the godfather of recruiting of Mike Farrell Sports. Mike, how are you doing today on another glorious college football Saturday?
Doing good. The Godfather of Props is going to be my new name because I've been actually kind of hot in that area. I got Jaden Daniels kind of disappointed me last week, but I think I went 4 or 5 last week. So we'll do some props today as well. Player props. There's a couple of really, really easy ones out there for everybody.
Love it. Mike and I, over the next 90 minutes, will be live with you, going over as much of the card as we possibly can, handicapping as many games as we can. We're going to get to your audience questions as we go, so ask them in the chat, and we'll get to them during a couple of breaks, like I said, as we go. So we're going to get started here in a second. Want to thank again our sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook. If you create a new account, use the promo code CFB Pros when you get started. If you make a minimum deposit of $5, you'll get a free $50 bet. And with that, let's get going. Mike, the first game that we have today is TCU traveling to Baylor. We got a wonky line in this one. It was 3 all week. It has toggled down as we've gotten closer to game day. We got a noon kickoff in this Titanic Big 12 tilt, down now to 2 points, TCU at Baylor. Who do you got in this one, Mike?
I think a lot of people are expecting this to be the trip-up game. I believe Baylor, the last 2 times undefeated Big 12 teams have had a chance at the playoff. Baylor was the one who tripped them up. It's sort of a trap game. But I'm going with TCU. They just match up well against Baylor. Baylor's been very erratic this season. And in the past, this has been a very good matchup for TCU. 5-0 in their last 5 meetings. 5-1 overall, the road team in this game. So I know it's a tough test. I know they're going to be a little bit tight because they're coming off a big victory last weekend. But the rushing attack is going to be too much with Duggan on the ground and Miller on the ground. And I just think they're going to cover this and, take care of business, continue to go undefeated.
Yeah, this is to me, this is one of the most underrated rivalries in the entire nation. Like you hear about Bedlam and you hear about some of these other games. You so rarely hear about this game, but this is a hated rivalry between these two campuses. You have senior day in Waco today. It's going to be a juiced up atmosphere down there in Waco today. And they're going to be ready for them. Baylor's going to be ready for TCU. I don't think that Baylor is going to have 2 consecutive down games. Last week, obviously, they had a sort of a travesty of a performance, particularly when you consider the injuries that Kansas State had. And Baylor just played so bad. I'm interested to see the matchup of the TCU offense against the Baylor defense. I actually think the Baylor defense matches up pretty well, particularly when you consider the things that Aranda, both this season, but also historically does well, and the things that he takes away. Dave Aranda, historically takes away your explosive plays. And I mean, generally his prerogative is just to sort of take away the thing that you want to do and the thing that you're best at doing. But generally that's the explosive plays. Obviously that's the thing that TCU leans into. I think TCU this year is 4th in the nation in explosive plays. And I know that they're number 1 in the nation in 50+ yard plays. Baylor is their top 25 in the nation in preventing explosive plays on both standard downs and passing downs. So that's one thing that TCU is going to have to jive. In this game, the puzzle for TCU's offense is they will have to be more methodical. And Mike, I loved your point of TCU is going to have to lean into that running game more. It's something that is going to have to, have more importance for them in this game. But I think, Baylor, they already rely on their efficiency more. They're more comfortable with the offensive efficiency aspect of it, preventing havoc, leaning on the running game, sort of, being comfortable just sort of taking you on the paper cut thing, and just sort of going down the field with the Richard Reese 4-yard gain, and then, the 5-yard pass to the tight end Sims. And then, we get a 4-yard gain to Baldwin, and then just sort of doing it that way. I'm going to take Baylor to pull the upset on TCU. TCU has been sort of begging for it in some senses here. There's been the 4 games or whatever where they've been really close to it. They needed the fourth quarter score late to beat Kansas State. They needed the last minute score to beat West Virginia. They needed another score late to beat Texas Tech. And then, of course, Texas played down about as bad as you can last week there. TCU has the +7 turnover margin this year. Can they keep is that sustainable? I'm going to take Baylor in that one.
Are you taking the money line?
I'm going to take the money line in it as well. Yeah.
So you got an outright win. You don't need those 2.5 points. You think this is it for TCU? Because if they lose, they're out.
If they lose, they're out. And I'm going to take TCU. Yeah. Is there any props angles that you like in this one, Mike?
I looked. I didn't see anything that really struck me. I had a lot of them that I liked last week against Texas, and they didn't put them on the board. Which was kind of disappointing to me because there were a lot of, intriguing Bijan Robinson and Kendra Miller ones, but this week, not yet. I got some props for some bigger games later, like USC and UCLA. So this is essentially, an elimination game for TCU when it comes to the playoff. And I get it. Baylor's going to give them their Super Bowl effort. This is their biggest game, and they're coming off an embarrassing loss. But I've been doubting TCU all season long, and I just started to change that tide last week when that wonky line was there with Texas laying 7. So I'm going to ride TCU, especially against the spread. I mean, they're hot. They're hot against the spread. They just haven't lost a spread game in 4 in all season long. They've been consistently covering the spread. So we're going to disagree on this one, and I'm going to be right.
Absolutely, yeah. And TCU has been just absolutely insane against the spread. I think it's 8-1-1 against the spread this year, which is the best in the FBS, and including 6-1-1 as a favorite. And by the way, 4-0-1 against the spread on the road. So pretty incredible numbers for TCU. We'll see if they can keep rolling. Our next game, and then we will get to audience questions if we have any early on. Is this is the other noon Eastern game that we're going to talk about. Michigan -18 at home today against Illinois. It looks like we're going to get Chase Brown for Illinois today. At least it looked like it was trending that way after early in the week. It didn't look good for Chase Brown. Also looks like we're probably going to get Josh McCray. The same sort of thing there. They both have leg injuries where it wasn't looking good for him early this week. Obviously, that's good news for Illinois and their super duper run first offense, because if they didn't have those 2 guys, it could have been really problematic for them here. But Illinois traveling to Michigan, we have a line in this game of 18. Obviously, we have a low total. Looks like it's sitting in the low 40s, around 42 right now. Mike, what's your angle in this game?
So it's 17 live on DraftKings. So it toggles
coming down a little bit. Yeah. So the market must be pretty confident that Brown is playing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have any inside information, but right around midweek, things took a turn where he was going to play.
Yeah.
And without him, as you mentioned, there's no chance.
No chance.
And I'm not looking for a victory here. I before Illinois went on this losing streak, and they started to lose a little bit of confidence, I thought maybe this defense would be a good matchup against Michigan because they do play the run well. The pass defense is excellent. They're one of the best defenses in the country, but they can't score. That means their defense is going to be probably on the field too much. Michigan's going to try to wear them down. That being said, you're going to give me 17 points. The day after Brett Bielema's mom died, prayers to the family there, this is going to be one motivated and together football team for Illinois. They are going to come out and give it their best. They're not going to win, but it's going to be closer than people think. The underdog is 6-1 in the last 7 meetings in this game. They're 5-2 against the spread in the last 7 against Michigan. Historically, they play well, at least under the number. So give me the sort of win one for Brett, cover. It's not a win, but I like Illinois to take this 17 points and stay within that.
I like that. On the sheet before, as you know, I had Michigan. Knowing now, at least what the market is telling us is that Chase Brown is going to play. Because of that, I'm going to switch my pick live here. I'm going to switch it to the under. With Brown playing, I should say that I'm less confident that Michigan wins by margin, but I think this one plays more into the grind it out, low scoring game. I'm going to take the under in this one. Both of these teams, the way that they play, it's going to facilitate an under style game anyway. And we don't know how healthy Brown is. We also don't know how healthy Josh McCray is. I definitely don't trust Tommy DeVito as far as I can throw him if they need him to throw in the big house today. So I don't trust any aspect of that. But obviously you're getting 17 points in a game where the point total is super duper low. So I think I'm going to trust the under of this one a little bit more. A couple numbers for you. The last 16 games that have been played in the big house, the unders of those games are 12-4. Another one, the Wolverines, the last 10 teams they've played, they've only allowed 3 of them to go over their team total. Just a bunch of different numbers pointing at the under. Another one, the forecast, I looked at it yesterday, was calling for 17-mile-per-hour winds today in Ann Arbor. So if either of these teams have to go to the air, I mean, neither of these passing attacks with the matchup, even in sort of perfect conditions, would the matchup be going for them? And I'm even talking about Michigan too, because Illinois' defense is nasty too against both the run and the pass. It's the reason why Illinois' defensive coordinator is on every single head coaching list. Yeah. Like, when you look at The Athletic, he's on every single, one of those things or whatever. So, I mean, but both of the passing attacks are going to play way down anyway. And so I'm going to take the under on that one and lean towards that. Mike is going to be on Illinois.
Now, prop wise, I was hoping there would be something here. I was hoping that this very good Illinois defense would drop Blake Corum's number. It didn't. It's 134.5. I don't like that number. He's gone over those numbers consistently, but the second I take him to cover a 134.5, he's going to have 60 yards. And then Chase Brown's number is 107.5 rushing over and under. But I don't know how healthy he is. That's kind of low. But I was hoping to take a prop or two in this particular game, and I didn't really see one that I liked. And yeah, I mean, I think we're in agreement. Illinois plays really good on the road against the spread. They're 6-1 in their last 7 games on the road. So they're playing for their lives too. I mean, this is their hope to win the Big Ten West, where it was a lock a few weeks ago, it seemed. They're going to be a very motivated football team. So I like the under, because, these are 2 rushing teams and neither of these offenses like to open things up. But I'm really, really leaning towards Illinois and the 17. So let's see. I just picture something, I picture something in a post-game press conference is that we and this is for a win. I mean, you don't do this you don't do a post-game press conference and say we covered for Brett, but I could just see, Illinois players saying nobody believed in us. We came out here, we did this for Brett, and he lost his mom a day ago, and he coached us through it. I don't know. I think they're on upset alert. That money line, let me see what it is. Gosh, it's tempting. It's plus 700. I mean, throw a couple bucks on that.
Mike,
why not?
Mike, you're getting frisky this Saturday
morning.
Wow.
I'm a degenerate, so I want to gamble on things with plus 700s.
Yeah.
So I just took the money line. I took it for a small amount. But why not?
Well, what I was going to say is that the 2 rushing props you put out, I think I would lean under on both those. The one caveat I was going to give is with the wind whipping around like it is, both the coaches are certainly going to lean away from the pass even more. But okay, so Brown is compromised. And so I don't think that Bielema is going to fill him up with touches like he usually does, because Bielema knows he's in deep trouble if Brown gets seriously hurt. right? So you have that on the one side. Bielema cannot lose Brown for the rest of the season. He needs him for bowl season, needs him for the end of the year. And then on the other side, Harbaugh needs Corum for next week, right? Like, I mean, it's the one reason why you would be trepidatious about laying the bigger number with Michigan, because they got overlooked here to Ohio State, right? And like, you don't want to give Corum a billion touches, even with the Heisman thing, because you got Ohio State coming next week. So you don't want Corum being, like fatigued or even getting nicked up because you give him 30 touches in this game. So like, especially against a really vicious defense, like we were talking about with Illinois here. So, but then again, like I said, with the win thing, you're not going to want to put the ball up for grabs with that thing swirling around. So, but I would lean the under on both those rushing props if I had to bet them.
The only way they lose this game is if they beat themselves. But it is a great game for them to lock up and lose. It just is. I mean, Ohio State looming, looking ahead of this team. I don't think they're going to lose, but that's 700. All of a sudden, I talked myself into that, and I don't know. So Illinois is going to cover. That's the safest thing. But if you're really, really a crazy person like me, take the 700 line for a few bucks and see what you get.
Love to see it. Okay, we're going to go to audience questions for the first time today. Mike, we got one from our old friend Mike Huseman, who asks us, Florida State hosting Louisiana as 24-point favorites. How do you guys feel about that spread? I'll kick this one off, Mike, because I do have feelings about this one. I'm taking Louisiana in this one. A couple of things we were just talking about overlook, with regards to Michigan to Ohio State. For me, this one with Louisiana and Florida State, it's an overlook game for Florida State, where next week they have Florida. This game for them doesn't mean as much, you would think, as a 24. But earlier this week, they were a 24.5-point favorite, but now a 24-point favorite. You can just roll out the carpet and you're going to beat Louisiana. Why are you going to put any extra effort into just stomping them or whatever?
Right.
It just seems like too many points. My system in this game has Florida State favored by 17 points in a vacuum. So it seems like it's just a touchdown extra on the spread. I'm not sure why Florida State is getting this tax. They don't have the motivation. Like I said, they don't have the motivation to stomp them, especially with that overlook. And then on the other side, Louisiana actually has motivation to put effort into this game because they're sitting at 5-5 with their first year staff. They can't afford to just give this game away. Obviously their staff and their team wants to make a bowl. So I'm going to be taking those points with Louisiana.
I would too. I also think that, when you look at rivalry week, Florida's looming for Florida State. They're coming off a big, couple wins. They beat Miami, which is a rivalry game. They beat Syracuse, who's just turned into a horrible football team. This is one of those ones where you kind of pencil in a win and maybe you sort of half-ass it a little bit and look ahead to Florida. So yeah, they're not going to win, but 24 is a nice line to take. So I agree with you on that. I would take Louisiana.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, Florida State's definitely going to win, but yeah, I mean,
right.
I think they're going to win by 17 or maybe 20, right?
Yep.
Like it's going to be something like that. Okay. And guys, we will get back to the audience
25
questions.
25 now too. It's 25.
Oh,
it's changed a point, which is all right.
Okay.
Taking it. Taking Louisiana.
Absolutely.
Lafayette. Done.
Raging Cajuns, baby. Guys, we will get back to the audience questions later in the episode. So keep asking them in the chat and we will hit as many as we can get to later in the episode. Mike, moving now to the afternoon games. We have the first 3:30 game we're going to talk about. Ohio State today traveling to Maryland. We have a line in this one of 27.5. Ohio State favored by 27.5. Actually, it's toggled down now. This morning, it looks like 27 at most books. And actually, at one book I'm seeing it's moved down to 26.5. Kind of interesting overnight. We got some line movement in this one. We have a total in this game of, that one's actually moved down a little bit too this morning, down to 62.5 from 63.5.
Yeah, it's 63 on DraftKings right now.
Okay, so we got a little late movement in this one, Mike. What do you think about this game?
Over. 27 is on DraftKings Live. I mean, I think Ohio State can cover that, but it's a pretty big number. We don't know the health, situation at running back. They got both guys banged up. But I do think that this is a game where, again, we're going to see C.J. Stroud throw for 4 touchdowns. I didn't prop him out this week, but I did. What was it, last week against Indiana? Propped him out for plus, over 3.5 touchdowns passing, because I know Ryan Day. I know, the Heisman situation there. I know the stats were down a little bit after that Northwestern game. So he's going to have a big game. I think the 27's too much, but especially on the road. But give me the over here. I mean, that's a low number. I don't know what your adjusted is, but I would have that in my head at 68, 69 points.
Yeah, it's right there. Yes, 68.5 is where I'm at on that. So yeah, would definitely lean that way as far as my system. So for me, I'm on Maryland on the side. And for me, you have 2 things. We've been talking a lot about it. It seems like it's not only holiday season, it's also overlook season. I'm going to be talking about this one in this game as well, because obviously we were talking about the Michigan overlook to Ohio State. Now we're going to be talking about the Ohio State overlook to Michigan. You also have, Mike was talking about all the injury situation on the Ohio State game. That not only matters in a vacuum for Ohio State in this game, it also matters vis-a-vis the overlook to Michigan, because it's a factor when you consider Ryan Day's decision of whether not only do you play these guys with Michigan on deck, but also his in-game decisions of when do we start to pull these guys when we're going to need them for Michigan, right? And getting into all those different guys, particularly on the running back side, right? Like last week, you didn't have Travion Williams, you didn't have Chip Trayanum, you haven't had Evan Pryor all season, and you're not going to have him all season. But then Mayan Williams, he got knocked out of the last game. So the running back situation got so precarious last week that they were using Dallas Hayden as the lead back with their walk-on receiver as the second back at the end of that game. Now, earlier this week, Ryan Day did say that he expected one of the 3 injured I think the way he put it was he would be shocked if at least one of the 3 injured backs wasn't playing today, I think was the way that he worded that. And he's talking about Travion Williams, Trayanum, and Mayan Williams. He expects at least 1, if not 2. And, I think he was insinuating, well, maybe we'll get all 3 of them. I'd be stunned.
He was insinuating all 3. He said 1 might be missing, but at least we're going to get 1. It's very iffy. But I think when Ryan Day says that means everybody's going to be ready.
We'll see about. I would be very surprised if they have.
I'm the Ryan Day whisperer, man. I've known him for 25 years. I know.
So you think that all 3 of those guys will be playing on the field today?
I think they're going to get time. I don't think they're going to get a bunch of carries. I think, to your point, they're going to be pulled early if this game gets out of hand. I think he wants them in game speed shape, especially Trevion Henderson, for next week, because you can't. Reps are reps. Practice is practice. You have to have live action. So I think we're going to see 2 of them. I don't think we'll see. I think we're going to see Trevion Henderson, and I think maybe Mayan Williams doesn't play because they want to give him an extra week, and he's had game action consistently. But I think they're going to be back. But to your point, I mean, that's not going to help if they're out of the game early. I think what your point here is the 27 is okay. Ohio State could get up 34-0 in the third quarter, pull everybody, and give up 10 points, and you got to cover, right?
Yeah, I mean, even when we're talking about it now, we're talking about it more with an eye on Michigan than with the Maryland thing. And I think that's also the way that the Ohio State coaching staff is looking at it. Like, how healthy are they? And the work that they get in this week, I think it's more with a nod towards the Michigan thing. Like, yeah, we should get this kid some work in because we need him healthy for, or we need to see him for the Michigan game, whatever. And so, like, there's no question Ohio State's winning this game. It's like we were talking about with the Florida State game against Louisiana. That's not the question here. This line is so inflated, though. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about the spread. And with all these different injured guys and working all these different guys in, like, I think there's a great scenario where Dallas Hayden is going to be toting this rock for a majority of the second half, and that we might see that walk-on kid, the receiver, at running back for some reps in the fourth quarter again. I think that's a distinct possibility. It seems like we're not going to see Jackson Smith and Jigba again. We might not see DeJuan Jones again, the right tackle. He was injured last week. The cornerback room has been injury ravaged all season long. Last week it was Denzel Burke that was out, but all three of them have missed time with injuries this year. We'll see how that goes. But I think that Day is going to be more conservative with regards to both inactives, but also the guys that he does play, to both Mike and I's point. I think the ones that he does get in, it'll be working them in to try to get them game action early, but then also pulling them early with an eye towards the Michigan game. And that's what the whole strategy will be, which is going to help us vis-a-vis the cover. Ryan Day is not – he's not looking to run the score up here. Ohio State does not need style points. This is not a situation like North Carolina.
Nope.
Winning Ohio State is in.
Yeah, so here's the thing. My buddy Chife came up with the last 7 meetings between these two teams. It's the over. That's 7 straight meetings. That's pretty good. Most of that's Ohio State carrying the bulk of the offense here. But knowing Ryan Day a little bit, I think maybe we're talking fourth quarter instead of third quarter pull on these guys. It's not a run-up situation. He values reps. He values playing time. He values sharpening your skills in live game action. So I think he's going to rest a guy like Williams, who's coming off an injury, and he won't push a Henderson. But I think C.J. Stroud, his over at touchdowns is 3.5 again. I think he's going to throw 4 touchdowns. It's a plus 110 also. It's not one of my top 5 props, but I'm just looking at it now. I would take C.J. Stroud above 3.5, gets yanked in the fourth quarter. And this is why I like the over, because I think Maryland's going to score some garbage points. And I think Ohio State's going to have an exponential lead. So if I get 40 from Ohio State, 45 from Ohio State, which I'm expecting to get, I can get on that over, if Maryland gets some garbage points. So we kind of agree on the game, but you're taking Maryland laying the 27, getting the 27, which smart, just too scary for me.
I'm stepping onto those train tracks, Mike Farrell.
Go ahead. Locks. Locks. What's a good alliteration?
Yeah.
I don't even know. Locks. I don't know. Go Locks. Whatever.
Yeah. Done.
That was awful.
Moving on to the next one at 3:30 Eastern, Georgia traveling to Kentucky. We got a line on this one of Georgia laying 22.5 with a total of 49.5. What do you like in this one, Mike?
Yeah, I think we're going to agree on this one. Under. And the reason, the line itself, I don't know. It's at Kentucky. I don't know. Georgia, again, Georgia Tech's not a rivalry game. They're going to beat them, however they want, whenever they want. But Georgia's got bigger fish to fry here. They've got a national championship to win. Offensively, I think Kentucky can sort of limit them slightly offensively. They match up well against them, even though it's difficult to defend, Brock Bowers, if he's being utilized as a runner, or, if they actually ever throw the ball to Darnell Washington, but they're not an explosive offense. Kentucky should keep this one low scoring, and Kentucky stinks. They'll run. They don't trust Levis anymore. The fact that he's a first rounder is the most astonishing thing in the world to me. I love his arm too, but you know what? I like the arm of like Major League Baseball players who could throw 99 miles an hour too, and they can't play quarterback. And this kid can't play quarterback. So I think it's going to be Kentucky's going to score 3. And then it's going to go under. So I take the under here.
I think you just called Will Levis Nuke Lelouch.
He stinks, man. I want him to be better. He's a Massachusetts kid who played in Connecticut. I'm a New England guy. Everybody from this area I love and root for. And I backed him, and he stinks. He's just not good. And I'm tired of this whole, he can be the right player in the NFL with the right team, whatever. No, he can't. Tennessee was the game where I was out. I was done. I could throw 300 yards against Tennessee. Me, with my noodle arm. And 93 and 3 picks, he stinks. So take the under and just call this a Will Levis under, because he's going to make enough mistakes to keep them at 3 points. And then, Georgia's going to win. And it's going to, be maybe 30-3 or something.
I think the game against the other Tennessee team was where I was finally out for the NFL draft perspective. When he was struggling against Vanderbilt, I was like, right. All right, man, if you can't rip them off, I don't know what to say.
Yeah, you know what? He was already out of my head, and then you just reminded me that he sucked against Vanderbilt too, which is the worst passing defense in the SEC
by far,
next to Tennessee.
Yeah.
I mean, those are the two worst passing defenses in the SEC, and he stunk against both. So let's go under here, make some money. I mean, I think betting against Will Levis is kind of like a new sport for me, and I'm going to take the under.
It's so well said. I'm going to go really quick. I'm not going to have much because you hit most of it. But Kentucky's offense has become awful, like Mike was saying. The offensive line, mostly because Kentucky's offensive line is way down, but also because Levis is strangely down even from last season. But Kentucky's offensive line, they lost the 3 NFL guys. They're now 78th in line yards, 102nd. The offense is 102nd in opportunity rate, but the offensive line is 108th in stuff rate. And the sack rate of the offensive line is down from 54th to 129th. It's a part of the reason why Levis is down. But what you're seeing manifest in Levis's game that's really scary from the NFL perspective is that's a guy who badly struggles under pressure. What we see from guys that you like, or the guys that you like from the NFL perspective, are guys whose games do not crater under pressure. It's one of the reasons why I snuffed out the Drew Luck being a bust before the other NFL draft guys, because Drew Lock was a guy who shredded the bad defenses that he played and the decent defenses who didn't generate pressure. But every single defense that he played that could generate heat, Drew Lock became awful. It was a totally different thing. And with Levis, you're seeing the exact same thing. He shreds the defenses that can't put heat in his face. Every time you see anything that gets in his face, all of a sudden he turns into Mr. Magoo. So it's you see that. And then also because of the bad offensive line, Chris Rodriguez now, he's doing his best. He's out there fist fighting people trying to get yards, but he's getting hit at or before the line of scrimmage every single time. So now Kentucky's offense stinks. And then you guys know about Stoops. Stoops, you could think about Kentucky now as like Iowa, because Stoops has the Iowa roots. Stoops is just going to try to muck up every single game, and he more or less succeeds-ish. Even against the good teams, his defense is decent enough. He's going to be able to more or less succeed in keeping the score down enough. They're going to lose. I mean, they're going to lose by a decent enough margin here, but they're going to be able to suppress the scoring enough. Both of these teams, Kentucky and Georgia, are both outside the top 100 in adjusted pace, and Kentucky is like bottom 5 in that. This game's going under the total.
Yeah,
it's come down to 48, but it's still going under.
Will Levis number here, the under is 10-1 in Kentucky's last 11 games, and that's all him.
There you go. Under. Okay, Mike, now we're going to talk about the game of the week, baby, because the Texas Longhorns are traveling to Lawrence, Kansas.
It's not Iowa, Minnesota. That's not the game of the week, Iowa, Minnesota.
Oh, we got 2 games of the week this week. Yeah, Texas is playing Rock Chalk Nation. They're going to their house of horrors, the Kansas Jayhawks, which have just been their absolute nightmare these past couple years. Kansas is a 9.5-point underdog. What are the books doing, Mike Farrell? With a total in this game of 64 points, who do you like in this one?
They're giving you free money is what they're doing. I like Kansas.
Free money.
I mean, this is one of those where you could talk about, the talent on Texas, and they're coming off a tough home loss, and they really need this victory for any sort of momentum and to keep their chances for the Big 12 title game alive, all that good stuff. But you have to look historically at this matchup. And you mentioned House of Horrors. And the last 5 meetings against Kansas, guess what? Texas is 0-5. And the underdog is 5-0. That makes sense because Kansas is always the underdog. They're always, getting too many points in this. Now, 9.5 or 9 doesn't sound like a lot of points when you talk about historically this matchup, when it's usually 20 plus. But no, Texas can't play well against Kansas. Kansas is still playing for something. They've got their bowl win, but now, they know they can beat Texas. They go into this game with more confidence than any other Big 12 team, honestly, which is kind of weird. But give me Kansas. This just reeks of, patterns are patterns, and Kansas is going to cover. I don't know if they'll win. I mean, the money line's intriguing. They could win, but give me the 9 points. Absolutely take Kansas.
Yeah, it's like Mike saying, I'm not sure what it is, but even when Kansas was circling the drain, when they were the worst of their worst over this past decade, and they were, you guys know, how bad it got for Kansas. But even when they were the worst of the worst, they were still competitive against Texas. And Mike mentioned that the last 5 times against Texas, Kansas covered each time. The last 3 times, Texas was favored in those games by 31, 21, and 15. And those games, Texas lost by 1, they won by 2, and they won by 7. Last year, you obviously remembered what happened. That was the triumphant win that really spurred the turnaround for Kansas. It's really what showed you that the Lance Leopold regime was turning the whole thing around, and showed you that Jalen Daniels was a real player. Because that's when, the game before that, that's when Jason Bina gotten hurt. And then it put Leopold to the decision of, should we burn the Jalen Daniels red shirt, or should we go to the QB3? Like, what should we do? They decide to burn the Jalen Daniels red shirt. Then Kansas stuns Texas. And then I think it was TCU and West Virginia at the end of the season that they played really tough and didn't win. And then obviously the start of the season, you've seen what's happened with Kansas. I don't know what it is, but Kansas always plays Texas tough. They match up well against them. We'll see in this game, crossing the fingers that Jalen Daniels comes back. He's been super duper close the last 2 weeks, particularly last week. And you even saw the reports last week of how close he was. Jalen Daniels last week went through the full pregame warmups. There was media reports at the beginning of this week that Jalen Daniels has been fully medically cleared. And then, he's been fully returned to practice, whatever. Leopold told the media this week that it's basically going to be up to Daniels and how he's feeling like on game day. So from all indications, it's a true game day decision thing where it's all going to be put up to Jalen Daniels. How are you feeling? So hopefully Jalen Daniels is feeling good today. And if he can give it a go and he tells Leopold that he can go, he's going to be given that opportunity. Kansas's offense has clicked all season, no matter the circumstances, no matter who's starting at quarterback, no matter who the defense is. They're top 25 or top 15 in a whole gamut of efficiency numbers, etc., on both passing and rushing. They're going to rip up the Texas defense there. Now, the Texas offense is also going to rip up the Kansas defense, because the Kansas defense stinks. I think a shootout is coming, absolutely. So I would definitely lean the over, but you're kidding yourself if you don't think I'm taking all these points with the Kansas team that has been covering over and over again. They're 7-2-1 against the spread this season, including, by the way, 4-0-1 against the spread at home, Kansas is, and they cover against Texas all the friggin' time. And this Texas team has been an enormous disappointment, and Kansas has been an enormous thorn in their side for several years running. So I'm absolutely taking those 9.5 points.
A couple of props. First of all, I also took the money line, because why not?
Yeah, you got to rock chalk, baby.
It's plus 255. I mean, take a little bit on that, because again, they have a chance to win. It's in Kansas, and crazy things happen. Bijan Robinson is interesting to me. He's plus 450 to score a receiving touchdown. Oh. And you would think, that's kind of a high number. That's a great plus. Yeah. They don't use him in the passing game, and I don't understand it. They started off the season doing it. You remember the Alabama game? He had 73 yards receiving, and then they've gone away from that. I think the one thing they will do is utilize him in the passing game a little bit more. So I would plus 450 on Bijan catching a touchdown pass, but it's not going to help Texas enough to cover that spread.
I like that angle. Yeah, and it is weird they've gone away from him. He's such a fabulously diverse back, and Kansas does give up those, the receiving yards to the back, the outlet out of the backfield. Mike, moving to our next one, and to the audience, we'll be answering your questions here after the next 2 games. So any questions you have, get them into the chat, and we will be knocking them out here in just a bit. Mike, our next one, a game that's a little bit down in the ACC, but we'll see if Miami can make any noise today, if they can get off the mat. Miami traveling to Clemson. Clemson favored in this game by 19.5 points with a total of 48. Who do you like in this one with a 3:30 kick?
It's down to 18.
Oh,
yeah.
Got some late buyback at Miami. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why. I still like. I mean, that's good for me because I have Clemson at 19.5, so I'll take them at 18. Yeah, I mean, Miami beat Georgia Tech last week, but Georgia Tech's horrendous. They're really just not good. I mean, they won a few games based on the momentum of the coaching change and let's play together. Now they've given up, and they're really just not going to be a very competitive football team. Miami has, with Brown at quarterback, he can't throw the ball. I know he had a good game last week, but he's not a consistent passer at all. They're lacking a lot of weapons. My man Mario coming out and saying, if you want to complain about playing time, come pick your kid up, get out of here. This is a grenade.
This ain't intramurals, brother.
Well, he pulled the grenade on this situation. He came in here, tried to piece it together with what was left, and now he's just, that portal is going to be filled with Miami players, and they're going to be happy to see him go. He's building a top 5 recruiting class this year. He'll do the same next year, and he'll have his own players in a few years. But right now, Miami's not a good football team. And Clemson, they don't have a ton to play for, but they still have pride. They still have the ACC to play for. They still have the outside chance they can get the playoff. I just think they're going to destroy them. But the thing I like better, so my pick is Clemson. The thing I like better is Miami team total unders 14.5. Take the under. I mean, they're not going to score 14.5 points. They're just not going to. That seems like easy money to me.
So I'm looking up. Oh, okay. So I just saw a report that it is going to be Ja'Carry Brown today. It looks like Van Dyke has been ruled out.
He's done for the year, man. He's not going to play again. I'm telling you.
Oh, okay. Mike Farrell reporting.
It's a hunch based on what I know. And Garcia is going to transfer, so they're going to go with, pretty much awful quarterback situation for the rest of the season.
It looks like Henry Parrish is going to be back. I do think that part of it is big for Miami's offense, because the one thing that they have been good at consistently this year, when Parrish is playing, is running the ball. Miami is 8th in the country rushing success rate, 33rd in offensive line yard, 46th in power success rate. They do need Parrish. Parrish is like, when he's active, he's been one of the better running backs in America, like on a per play basis. 85.6 PFF rushing grade, averaging 4.7 yards per carry. It looks like he's going to be back. And that Clemson front seven has been very inconsistent. Definitely hasn't been as good as we thought. And of course, a part of that's been, there's been the players who have been in and out. Then it's been sort of hard for them to coalesce because they haven't played together as much, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, Miami's not going to be able to, Mike was mentioning with Brown in and not Van Dyke, they're not going to be passing as well. Miami should be able to run just a little bit if Parrish is playing. This one's tough as far as against the number, because I don't trust either of these teams. In fact, I don't trust many ACC teams at all. It's a conference that I just don't trust any of these teams. What I'm going to do, I'm going to actually bet the over of this game. I'm going to switch my pick to the over. I do think that there's going to be a bit of success here as far as that goes. Miami, or one of their Achilles heels is their defense gives up a crap ton of explosive plays, particularly passing. Almost to the point where it's become a joke this year. Even Middle Tennessee was just piling up all these explosive passes because for whatever reason, Miami secondary just can't tackle. They really can't cover either. But as long as you can complete passes against the Miami secondary, and most can, you're going to get long passes against them. Well, DJU, one of his best things, it's completing the long passes. I have his grade. He's one of the top guys in the so DJU on passes 20 plus yards in the air this year, 92.0 PFF grade this year. Miami secondary is 127th in the nation in passing explosiveness allowed. There's only 131 teams in the FBS. This is not good for Miami. So I do think there's going to be several long Clemson passing touchdowns. And with a total this low, it's down to 47. Clemson could get almost half of those just on 3 quick plays. And I do think that Miami can at least grind out a couple of touchdowns on the ground if Parrish is playing. It looks like Parrish is going to play. And Clemson should be able to generate a couple more just in the rest of the game. So I'm going to take the over on that. Might be a bit of a contrarian play, but I'm going to take the over on that. Okay, we're going to get to one more game, and then we will get to audience questions. Mike, the aforementioned other game of the day with the Iowa Hawkeyes traveling to Minnesota. Mike, it looks like we are going to get history. I've been waiting all week for this moment. The record in college football history for the lowest point total in college football history is 33 in college football history. This line opened at 32.5. It is right now 32. So
31.5 on DraftKings.
31.5 at DraftKings. So as long as that holds through to game time, we will have a record in college football history for lowest point total. The Iowa Hawkeyes traveling to the Minnesota Golden Gophers. Live line on this game is Gophers -2.5. Who do you like, Mike, in this historical college football matchup today?
Historical. I still like the under, but I wouldn't love it. I mean, it's too low, but I still think this goes under. These are two pretty much – I mean, Minnesota's very, very one-sided offensively with run, and big offensive linemen. Iowa's zero-sided offensively because they just suck. But this is similar to Kansas and Texas. You have to look at the history. Iowa owns – they own this team. They're 7-0 in their last 7 games against Minnesota.
And Farrell owns Fleck. Yes,
it really does. I mean, he's 5-0-1 against the spread in their last 6 meetings. They're 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 meetings in Minnesota. So on the road doesn't really matter. They're getting 2.5 right now live on DraftKings. Give me Iowa. And again, the money line here isn't huge. It's plus 115, so it's not really advantageous. But if you're going to take the 2.5, take the money line instead and make yourself some money because Iowa's going to win this football game.
So the game that I just mentioned that had the total of 33, the previous record holder, it was 1995 Arizona against Oregon State. That game went under. Arizona won 20-11. Mike, you're a college football historian, so I knew you'd appreciate that.
Amazing. I thought that Iowa, remember, what was it earlier this year? Iowa, was it Iowa?
It was Iowa Rutgers, wasn't it?
Or Iowa, Illinois, maybe?
Or was it Minnesota Rutgers? It
might have been Iowa, Illinois earlier this season when the number was so low because I don't remember.
Those 4 teams are the Bermuda rectangle of offensive ineptitude.
Real quick before you pick Iowa, because I know you're gonna, because that's your team.
You don't know what I'm gonna do, Mike.
Yeah, I know what you're gonna do. You're gonna pick Iowa. There's no doubt in my mind because you are a historian like me. Take the under on Mo Ibrahim. It's 134.5 here. I know they're going to give him a ton of carries, but Iowa's defense can bottle you up. And if they know that you can't pass the ball, they're going to load the line of scrimmage. So take under 134.5 Mo Ibrahim as well.
I like that. Now I'll get to that one in a second. I think that Iowa's offense, it's a better matchup for them than it is for Minnesota's offense. So the Iowa offense has actually sort of quietly started to play better in recent weeks. And the reason why I like this matchup for them is their offensive line is way, way down. And we started to see this last year where Linderbaum was awesome. He actually had the best PFF graded year ever for a center, but the guards and the tackles around him were just awful last year. And now Linderbaum's gone. So now Iowa's their whole offensive line stinks. And that's been a problem for Petrus, all year. I mean, like any team with a good pass rush immediately storms the gate against Petras, and he's had to throw so much because Iowa's been down in these games, whatever. At least Petras has kept the turnovers down when he's been under duress. He hasn't been great, but he's got the turnovers down. But Petras he's been playing better in these recent weeks, in part because they played a couple of teams that don't have a pass rush. Luckily for them, Minnesota doesn't have a pass rush. They have a decent they have a good defense, Minnesota does, but they do not get after the quarterback. So Petras is at least going to have clean pockets here. That's number one. Number two, like I said, Petras has been playing better recent weeks. He had a PFF passing grade above 82 in the games against Rutgers, Michigan, and Northwestern, and averaged over 7.2 yards per pass in all 3 of those games. Sam Laporta of Iowa is going to have a big game in this game because that's who's going to get targeted. So I would look for the over props on Sam Laporta. Caleb Johnson for Iowa has been really good in recent weeks. I also might look at his props, averaging 6.1 yards per carry over his last 3 games. Obviously, we have to mention that Tanner Morgan is out for Minnesota. That's a big factor in favor of Iowa because it means that Minnesota has to start Ethan I've been practicing this, Mike, because I knew I was going to have to pronounce it in front of you. Ethan Kaliakmanis is starting for Minnesota. In the 2 games that Kaliakmanis has started before this, he had a 63 PFF passing grade against Penn State, which that was understandable because he was starting in Happy Valley in his first game. Like, yeah, you're going to struggle in that one. But he also had a 63 PFF passing grade against Northwestern, who is absolutely awful. They lost to an FCS team in Miami of Ohio and stuff like that. So Kaliakmanis should be decent down the road. In fact, the Gopher coaching staff thinks he's going to play in the NFL, but he's just not ready yet. And now he has to play one of the best secondaries and one of the best defenses in college football in Iowa. And also, well, I can tell you because I'm sitting in Minneapolis right now. First of all, it's frigid. Second of all, 16-mile-per-hour winds are expected. So this isn't going to be good for both passing games just in a vacuum, but also with the kid and going against the really good defense, etc. Also, Minnesota, as Mike was mentioning, obviously super run heavy. Minnesota 67.6 is their rushing rate to this point. They're going to try to give the ball to Ibrahim at least early on. But the problem is Iowa has either the best run defense in the nation or the second best. So Minnesota's going to be going 3-and-out. At some point, you got to have Kaliakmanis throw it, but then it's going to be in the cold and in the wind and into one of the best secondaries in the nation. This is not good for Minnesota. And Iowa, the last thing I'll say, they allow 3.4 yards per carry. Ibrahim can break some tackles, but Iowa does not. Their tackle rate is one of the highest in the country, and they follow. Like, they get to the ball. They're a gang tackling team as well. This is not a good matchup for Minnesota without their top quarterback. I really like Iowa in this game.
You took Iowa? That's weird.
So you didn't need the long explanation, did you?
Well, you said a couple funny things too there. You said that the Iowa offense is starting to show signs of life. They put up 24 points last week.
No lies detected, Mike.
24 the week before.
Offensive explosion, Mike Farrell.
33 against Northwestern. And
Offensive
this is an offense that's starting to come alive a little bit. I mean, the under is very intriguing here. But, yeah, I think we both agree I was going to win this. You know, the prop on Caleb Johnson, 65.5, that's kind of low. I would take the over on that too, as you mentioned. So, you know, Spencer Petras passing yards over is 140.5. I mean, you could get a middle schooler out there and their number would be similar. This is ugly. I was going to win this football game. And if you watch it, you're going to have to gouge your eyes out afterwards and just, I don't know. It's just going to be an ugly game.
Mike Farrell, not only will I be watching, I will be there. I will be there live. Because
you have a mini Floyd of Roseville trophy in your house? Do you have one?
How was I going to miss a shot to be there live for history?
You're going. Okay. All right.
It would take a bigger man than me to miss out.
It is a great rivalry, and it's a great trophy. I'll give you that. Beyond that, it's really not a great game.
Oh, man. Not only will it be a great game, I'm going to get to see history with my own 2 eyes, Mike.
Gross.
With my own 2 eyes. Mike and I want to thank our title sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook. Again, Betting Pros and DraftKings Sportsbook are teaming up to bring you guys a wild offer this season. New customers can get a free $50 bet when making their first time deposit. To get in on the action, just create your new DraftKings Sportsbook account using the promo code CFBPros. Make a minimum deposit of $5 or more, and then use your free $50 bet to get in on the college football action. Again, to claim this offer, go to the link in our video description or pinned in the live chat and sign up to get started. Mike, let's get back to our audience questions. Okay. This one is from our buddy 2K, Mike. He asks us, will Navy be like a little kid on their birthday and enjoy their time in the bounce house? Or nice. Or will UCF's bounce house claim yet another victim? Navy is plus 15.5 currently. So that line is down from, I think it was plus 17 earlier this week. I'm not surprised that thing has moved down. It reminds me a little bit of last week. It was, Navy was playing Notre Dame. I was on Navy last week against Notre Dame. I'm also on Navy this week against UCF. Last week, I think it was Navy was plus 17.5 against Notre Dame. And then that one by kick, it had moved down to like Navy plus 16. And this one similarly, now it's down like 1.5 points. So it's a very sort of similar progression. And it's sort of a similar scenario as well, where Navy, the thing that they're really good at, the thing that they're obviously it's a triple option running team, but the thing that they're best at, it's their run defense. And in both scenarios, they're catching over 2 touchdowns against a decidedly run first team. Obviously, that's what UCF does too. UCF is more of the finesse and want to get you around the outside kind of run first team, and they run more tempo than Notre Dame does. But it's the same sort of similar thing. Navy, not only do they have the good run defense, but they're very efficient in terms of their tackling and reliable in terms of their tackling. So it's a bad matchup in terms of that. And then also, they run the ball a lot as well, of course, and they're efficient with their running. And so the clock is going to be running the entire game, which just sort of goes in our favor, catching the double-digit points as well.
I like the under. It's 53. To your point, it's going to be sort of a running attack for both teams. Reese Plumlee is not a quarterback; he's a runner. So the clock is going to
Rice Plumlee, Mike. Remember
Reese, yeah. Whatever. He stinks too. But I will tell you, I like the under here. I like Navy. Plus 15.5. We gave you free money last week. It was the over was 11.5 for points for Navy.
Yeah, and that one hit. It was like late early second quarter or something, or first quarter, whatever. That one was so fast. Yeah.
First quarter. But here I don't have free money for you, but I do like Navy to cover the 15.5, and I do like the under here. So that's my take on that.
Navy in the under. Next question comes from our buddy Mike Huseman. He said, I'm high on Middle Tennessee +6 hosting Florida Atlantic. Seems like a good spot for the Raiders. Do you guys have a lean? I do. I agree. I like Middle Tennessee. It's one of my column picks this week, one of my top 10 best bets. So Middle Tennessee, I think they match up really well here, getting 6 points at home. Middle Tennessee they're a team I've had a ton of success on this year, and they're one of my favorite teams to handicap because they're so matchup specific. They have like these super specific strengths and weaknesses, like very well defined and well delineated on both offense and defense. On offense, obviously, like they have this spread offense and they're super duper pass heavy, and you have to be able to tackle them in space or they absolutely abuse you. We talked about this earlier in the episode when we were talking about Miami. When Middle Tennessee played Miami, they just asked Miami's defense a simple question: can you tackle us in space? And all Miami's defense had to say was yes, and Miami would have won that game. But Miami's defense answered no, and so Middle Tennessee routed them. It was as simple as that. And then on defense, Middle Tennessee stinks at defending the pass, but the one thing that they can do is defend the run. And so, it turned out to be in their favor against Miami, going back to the Henry Parrish thing. Middle Tennessee could address that. But for instance, Middle Tennessee was not as good of a matchup against Western Kentucky, who could throw all over them. Well, in this game, FAU's pass defense is not very good. And not only that, FAU does not tackle very well. FAU is both sub 100th against explosion. They're also sub 100th in tackle rate on their defense. And then you flip it to the other side. FAU is a run first offense, so MTSU's defense can address that. And then when FAU is not as good throwing the ball, but the one thing that FAU's passing offense is good at, it's generating the deep shots basically off of play action. That's the only thing that MTSU's pass defense is good at taking away, is the deep shots. So MTSU basically matches up well all across the board. And like I said, they're getting the 6 points at home. Plus MTSU still has a ton to play for because they're 5-5 and they need one more win to go bowling. I'm calling for MTSU to spring the outright upset in that one.
I got them covering the 6 at the very least, so I agree with you.
Blue Raiders, let's go.
Blue Raiders.
Michael Irick asks us, man, we get so many mics. It's always the Abbott and Costello routine.
True.
Michael Irick asks us thoughts on Ole Miss versus Arkansas game, TCU Baylor. Michael, we will be talking about those in just a sec. We just haven't gotten to the evening game, so just bear with us. Yeah, 1 second. We'll be knocking up.
We talked about TCU Baylor.
I'm sorry. We
disagree on that one. I got TCU, you got Baylor. So
We're on opposite sides of that one. But on the replay at the very beginning, Michael, we talk about that one. So you can watch it. Mike and I talking about that at the very beginning. But we'll be getting to Ole Miss and Arkansas in just a second. JDNGV asks us, speaking of style points, given the opportunity, will Tennessee run it up on South Carolina laying 22? In short, absolutely yes. Mike, anything to add to that?
In short, absolutely 100%. They're good. Plus, it's not even style points. I mean, this is a chance to stomp on an Eastern Division foe on the road, help recruiting. Every aspect of this speaks to a 35-point blowout. South Carolina, they were okay for maybe a smidge this season, and now Florida drilled them. Tennessee's going to drill them even worse.
I need to see if Marshawn Lloyd and Christian Beal-Smith are playing for South Carolina. If those guys are out again, South Carolina is going to get absolutely throttled. They need those guys to even stay close. And then Mike Huseman asks us, Bruins-Trojans is a fantastic matchup. I like UCLA, but an interesting one. And we are going to be getting to that one here
we are.
in a second. Yeah. So, Mike, now we hop into the evening game, 7:30 Eastern. We got Bedlam. Oklahoma State traveling to Oklahoma. Oklahoma is a 7.5-point favorite with a total on this game of 65.5. What's your angle on this one, Mike?
Bedlam is always, at least recently, Oklahoma State. You give me a touchdown in a game that they historically have had success in recent years. Oklahoma is a real cold team on the road. At home. 0-5 in their last home games against the spread, 1-6 in their last 7 overall against the spread. They're just not – nothing points to Oklahoma for me here. We will see Spencer Sanders back, thank goodness. Thank goodness. If I ever see Gundy's kid throw another pass, I don't know what I'm going to do. But he's going to be playing, and thank goodness for that. So give me Oklahoma State for sure.
I don't want to rip on Gundy's kid too much because I feel like that's more the father Gundy's fault. But I had a long conversation with someone on the phone about this week about how it's inexcusable that Mike Gundy put his son into the scenario that he did and how the kid should be at an FCS school.
Child abuse is what it is.
It just should never have gotten to the point where that kid had to be starting in a game against a Big 12 team. It's just disgraceful. But anyhow, I mean, the good news is it does seem like Spencer Sanders is going to be back for this game. And not only that, it seems like for the first time all season, it seems like Oklahoma State, not only are they going to have Sanders back, seems like they're going to have the full complement of receivers back. Seems like they're going to have Johnson. Seems like they're going to have Bray. Seems like they're going to have the full gamut of it. So finally, they're getting fully healthy. So, I mean, at least you have that on the Oklahoma State side. Not only before were they injury ravaged, it also seemed like they were sort of on the verge of quitting because of that. They had all these things going on. And I mean, I was just giving Gundy crap, but at least credit to him for sort of dragging the team through and out of that. They had those couple games where it did kind of seem like the team quit, but then they had a couple of the other ones. What was it during that just awful stretch where they did beat Texas and Iowa State? So they the Iowa State game, they just pulled it out with like bubble gum and tape and whatever. So I mean, you got to give them credit for that or whatever. This is a really weird matchup. Obviously, the Oklahoma defense has stunk all year, and they stink in the red zone, and they stink between they stink before the red zone as well. The Oklahoma defense has the terrible run defense, but I don't think that Oklahoma State's offense is going to be able to solve that. I also think that Dylan Gabriel is going to be able to throw all over the Oklahoma State secondary, and I think the Sooners are going to have success running on Oklahoma State as well. I think because Oklahoma State has gotten healthier, I'm going to lean towards Oklahoma State in this one, getting the 7.5 points, especially like I said, because I've seen more of the fight in recent weeks and getting back the key guys. That's why I'm now going to lean towards Oklahoma State. I thought I was just going to be done with Oklahoma State, like a couple weeks ago. But now, because of these past couple of weeks, now I'm just going to sort of tepidly be back in. But look, Mike, I wouldn't bet your money on this game. I'm definitely not nothing official. I'm not going to be even betting, an action bet on this one. But my lean would be Oklahoma State just getting more than a possession, getting the hook over the touchdown. That's where I'd be on this one.
Yeah, so there's ESPN for me. So the other thing too is there's a little bit of motivation here for Oklahoma State. You know, Bedlam's not going to continue. You know, it's Oklahoma State's extremely motivated by Oklahoma leaving to go to the SEC. The Oklahoma State players, Coach Gundy, they want to send a message to Oklahoma. It's like, okay, you want to follow Texas like their little brother, go to the SEC. You want to kill Bedlam, go ahead. But we're going to send you out, and this isn't the last game, obviously, but we're going to send you out with a little bit of a message. You know, you think it's easy here, and it's not so easy in the SEC. You think the SEC is going to raise the level of competition for you, all that. We're going to throttle you. So the extra motivation in this game is not really talked about a lot, but I know for a fact it's there. I've talked to a lot of people about it. And I think Oklahoma State's going to be a little extra motivated to win this football game and send Oklahoma a message that, you know, whatever, you think you're better than everybody, well, you're not. And Gundy owns this series too. I mean, so historically, motivationally, I agree with you. We're going to Oklahoma State.
Love it. Yeah. Yes. And Gundy sure does. Moving to the next game, another 7:30 kick. This time we're moving to the SEC. Ole Miss in the Lane Train, favored by 2.5 points, traveling to Fayetteville, take on the Arkansas Razorbacks. We got a total in this one of 63 points. Mike, who do you like in this one?
You know, my brain tells me Ole Miss, you know, but then I looked at some of the numbers because, you know, Ole Miss can run the football. You know, passing isn't their strength. Arkansas's passing defense is horrible, and they can play the run a little bit better than they can the pass. But overall, I mean, Ole Miss, I think, is in a better place as a football program. But Ole Miss stinks against Arkansas. They just don't cover. They're 0-4 in their last 4. My buddy Chife came up with this. They're 1-9 in their last 10 games when playing on the road against Arkansas. 1-9 against the spread. Arkansas is losing games they probably shouldn't lose. Sam Pittman, the bloom is off the rose. You know, fans are upset, you know, because there was high expectations coming off a 9-win season last year and all this other good stuff. The LSU loss was kind of an ugly one. But I think this team's going to come together. I have them winning this outright. So it goes against what I logically think is Ole Miss is the more talented football team, and Judkins has been unstoppable. But give me Arkansas at home. It's a tough atmosphere, and I think all this swirling garbage about Auburn and Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin and this, that, and the other, I think this team might be slightly distracted. So give me Arkansas.
So Arkansas going for them. It looks like they're going to get KJ Jefferson back, which is obviously enormous, not just because KJ Jefferson is good, but because Arkansas's backup quarterbacks are an abomination.
Well, their backup quarterback is a running back. He's not a quarterback.
Exactly. And then, so and then also they're getting Miles Slusher back, who was suspended last week. And then it looks like they're also getting their right tackle back, that Wagner kid who was injured last time. So they're going to be back to full strength where they, you know, last week they were decidedly not. You got all that stuff going for you. Also, you're going to get Ole Miss at home. And Ole Miss coming off of objectively what was a super deflating loss. So the spot definitely leans towards Arkansas. Mike, you were mentioning the recent historical success. Absolutely, the spot is pointing at Arkansas. Both of these teams are going to be able to run 1,000%. Both these run defenses are not good, and both of the rushing offenses are very good. Mike, you're talking about Judkins and obviously Evans. They're going to both be able to tee off on Arkansas's crappy run defense. And then Ole Miss's crappy run defense is going to facilitate whatever Jefferson is able to do. If he's 100%, he's going to be able to do whatever he wants on the ground. And then whoever's active for Arkansas in the backfield, they're going to be able to do whatever they want as well. So, I mean, I think this is a rushing prop over game on both sides. Ole Miss, like the Arkansas pass rush, I think is going to be given Jackson Dart heat the entire game. I think that's one factor to look at. I think the Ole Miss passing attack could play down because Dart has played down under heat this year. I don't trust Jackson Dart. I thought he would have a better season this year. I am going to take Arkansas. I do have some trepidations about them, but I am going to take Arkansas. I think one other angle potentially for this game. My system likes the over, and so it's the one reason why I'm staying away from this. But the under is a potential look too. I'm not playing it, like I said, because my system does really, it's pointing at the over. But Ole Miss keeps going under the total. They've gone under in 3 straight and 4 of the last 5. Ole Miss now, they just run it so much. Lane doesn't trust Jackson Dart. They just won't put it up in the air, and they won't take chances no more. Like,
well, their offensive line can't pass block either, and that's part of the reason.
Yeah. And he plays down under duress. So it's like you have all those different things. And obviously they run so well. And then the clock keeps running, whatever. So but my official lean will be Arkansas. I got the same lean as Mr. Farrell. Before we move on to the next game, we wanted to tell you guys about one of the best deals that's been going on at Fantasy Pros. If you guys want a chance to win a signed Josh Jacobs Las Vegas Raiders jersey, courtesy of our friends at Pristine Auction, you need to subscribe to the Betting Pros YouTube channel right now. Comment below on this video, and that's it. I don't just comment that Mike and I are awesome. I guess.
Right, that's it.
You can say whatever you want. Yeah, say we're handsome. I guess. I don't know.
Very true.
Make sure to turn on notifications to know when new videos drop and to find out if you've won. I guess that's it. You only have to.
I would love a Josh Jacobs autograph jersey.
I'm good back there.
I'm a collectible. I'm just an addict when it comes to collectibles. So if I could comment on something and maybe win it, why not? I mean, I'm going to do it. And then if I don't like Josh Jacobs or the Raiders, eBay. Hello.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, moving on to our next one. And guys, out there, we're going to be answering audience questions again before we get out of here. We got 20 minutes left, so we're going to fast break through our last couple night games, and then we're going to be getting to audience questions again. So any questions you have about side bets you're thinking about making, totals you're thinking about making, or player props, I'm sitting with the prop king here. Feel free to drop them into the chat, and we will hit all of them before we get out of here. Mike, we're getting into our Pac-12 portion of the show. Pac-12 doing us a favor this time around. We've been talking in recent weeks about how we didn't have any good late night games. We finally do because the Pac-12 showed up this week. First one, very intriguing game. USC traveling to UCLA. Live line in this one, I got to check it because this one is doing some weird stuff.
DraftKings is -2. USC is -2.
So USC -2 at DraftKings. There's some, and it's -2 at some other books. Some books have it at -2.5. So it's between there and the market. And then we got a total in the game somewhere between 76.5 and 76, depending on what book that you're looking at. This game kicks at 8 p.m. Eastern tonight. Mike, what do you like in this one?
Over. I don't like this line because this one of two things is going to happen here. I believe UCLA is going to, play this game close and pull off what I think is a bigger upset than -2. They looked horrible against Arizona last week. They've looked up and down this season. USC has been playing okay football. I mean, they're struggling here and there with some teams, but they've got the better talent overall and offensively. I mean, Dye being out for the season hurts. But give me the better quarterback in this situation, or USC is going to blow them out. And I don't know which is going to happen. So I'm not touching the line. I am taking the over because I think both teams have defensive deficiencies that could be exploited by the other team. And I look for these dual threat quarterbacks to sort of have, big games on the ground as well. But I do have a prop, which goes in line with that, is kind of the opposite of what I said, big games. I think DTR is going to have a very good game on the ground, but there was a prop out there. Made no sense to me. So it's +100 for him to not score a rushing touchdown. And I get it, but I don't get it. I mean, he's thrown 20 TD passes. He's rushed for 7. It's not like he's a, constant threat to score on the run. Charbonnet has 13 rushing touchdowns. He's their number one option if they do get close. So I would take the under. I don't think DTR is going to get in on the ground, and it's a nice +100, which is rare for a touchdown prop. But give me the over. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game with a lot of bad defense.
So I'm gonna take UCLA to pull the small upset in this one. This is a line that opened at USC -5.5 on Sunday, and by Monday the line came down to 2.5 or 2 or whatever, and it has held steady since then. But obviously the sharps in the market just flooded the market with money on UCLA like right away because the line had obviously dropped too high. And I agreed with that early movement. My adjusted line on this game is actually UCLA -1.7. My system makes UCLA the small favorite, and I agree with that. I think UCLA matches up really well in this game, and I do think that you're gonna see them more locked in than any other game this season. Last week, you saw their worst performance of the season against Arizona. And we talked last week about how they had overlooked USC. I think that's what you saw manifest. And yeah, it sucks that they were, they sort of no-showed that game. But I mean, this is the game that they were overlooking to. And they've obviously been looking forward to this game for a while. I mean, like Dorian Thompson-Robinson have been, saying some very pointed comments about USC in the media. And he was talking about, we're going to drop 60 points on USC and all this stuff. And he's been talking about LA is our city and all this different stuff like this. The UCLA offense, I don't know how USC stops them in this game. The Bruins run and pass offense both rank in the top 6 in the country in success rate. USC's defense ranks outside the top 100 in both of those categories. The Bruins defense obviously is no great shakes, and the USC offense is obviously very good. But the Bruins defense does have one big thing going for it in this game, which you cannot say for the USC defense. What the Bruins defense has going for it is it's very good at taking away explosive plays. And obviously the USC offense is in some ways relying upon those. So taking those away, USC's offense now is going to have to be more methodical moving the ball down the field, right? Well, what I'm going to be interested in seeing is now that you have to do that, you're going to have to run more plays. So now that new look, the newly reconfigured USC backfield, they're going to be getting even more touches than the backfield was under Travis Dye in this game. Right. I mean, it's already looking to be a projected up-tempo game that features more plays. Anyways, Travis Dye brought that USC Trojans offense so much reliability, right? He obviously brought them the counting stats, and he averaged, almost 100 yards a game, and all that sort of stuff, and the touchdowns, etc. But the reliability, I think, was the biggest thing. He wasn't the flashiest back in all of the NCAA. The flashiness of that offense, it was the passing stuff and Caleb Williams and Addison, etc. Travis Dye, I think the reason that Lincoln wanted him was he was the meat or the meat and potato part of what Lincoln Riley was looking to do, right? We'll see if with the increased usage with Austin Jones and Rayleigh Brown, if they can hold on to the ball and keep the efficiency exactly where it was on the USC offense. But again, increasing the amount of plays that USC has to run in order to score on every possession. We'll see if that manifests in more turnovers on the USC side. Earlier this season, we were talking about how the USC defense is god-awful, but it continued to benefit from unsustainable luck of the amount of turnovers it was deriving and the amount of points that it was deriving out of the unsustainable amount of turnovers that it was getting. Now, that has started to dry up a bit. Now, if it switches the other way in terms of the regression monster, will it start to bite their offense a little bit? This could be a spot where it happens again with you go from Dye's reliability to the new look running backs in a spot where they have to get more usage. I think this is a spot where UCLA, a locked in UCLA, matches up really well. I'm taking them to upset the Trojans in this game.
I like the over. I like the over. They average 84 points between them, so give me the over.
The over. And my system, by the way, is calling for spit out 80.5 for that game. So obviously Vegas spit out a high number, but my system is spitting out an even higher one. So it's right on the same page with you, Mike. Moving to our next game at 8:00, and then we only have one after this game, and then we'll get to audience questions. Mike, a lesser game, but we were talking about how the ACC is all wonky. We got two teams that are in the tank right now. Syracuse traveling to Wake Forest. Wake Forest a 10-point favorite in this one with a total of 56. What do you like in this one?
Wake. Syracuse offense has just been horrendously awful. At least Wake can still move the ball, score some points. The favorite in this is 8-2 in the last 10 meetings between these two teams. I don't know. I like Wake Forest to lay 10. I think Syracuse is done, man. I think they've mailed it in. When Schrader went down, this team went down, and they can't put anything together. So give me Wake to win this one, and it could be, I don't know, it could be 20 points. Syracuse is just really, really bad football team that's kind of given up.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the over in this one. Obviously, so Wake has lost 3 in a row. Syracuse has lost 4 in a row. The Syracuse offensive line has been a disappointment. It's played down Tucker a little bit. Syracuse is 125th in sack rate allowed, and the Demon Deacons are second in pass rush. That's what concerns me about, that part of the Syracuse offense in this game. I do think that this is a big get right game for Sean Tucker specifically. The Wake Forest offense should be able to do what they want on the Syracuse the Syracuse defense. I do think that Syracuse is like, as long as they can, when they can get the passes off, the Wake Forest secondary stinks. So, and the one thing that they got going for them is the quick hitting passing game. So, I mean, they don't. Robert Anae doesn't allow his quarterbacks to just sit back in the pocket because it's just like the quick hitting thing. So I do think they're going to have at least the thing baked in to help out the offensive line as far as that stuff goes. So I'm just going to stay away from the side thing in this one. I've started to, these past 3 weeks, started to lose faith in Wake Forest a bit, which is why I'm just going to sort of tepidly stay away from the side. And I'm just going to go to the over, because this over seems just a little bit down to me. My system's total in this game was 61.5.
Be careful, though. Syracuse is averaging 14.5 points in their last 4 games. I mean, that's just – Wake better carry you if you want the over.
Wake will carry me over the threshold, Mike. The last one we're gonna talk about, and then we'll get to your audience questions before we get out of here. Mike, Utah traveling to Oregon tonight. This line middle of the week flipped across the threshold. We'll talk about why in a second, but Utah now is favored by 2 points. We got a total in this one. Let me see if the updated one. Now it's down to 60 points live, down from, it was in the mid 60s earlier this week. What do you like in this one?
I haven't heard anything on Bo Nix. He's questionable for this game. Game time decision. We won't hear anything about him later. So
I think he's going to be out of there.
Do you?
I think he's going to be out of there.
Yeah. So it's a huge factor in this. Obviously, I mean, the drop down to Ty Thompson or whoever is just astronomical. That being said, it's in Oregon. They still have Pac-12 title hopes in mind. They have more to play for, although I guess Utah still does too. It speaks to me, Oregon, in this game, just because of some of the numbers. The home team's 5-0 in the last 5 meetings between these two teams. Oregon 6-1 against the spread in their last 7. I just don't know if Bo Nix is going to play or not. I really don't have any information on this one. Like, there's certain ones where I know whether a guy's going to play or not going to play, or we have information by now whether they're going to play. There's been no word at all on Bo Nix. So don't bet your money on this one. If Bo Nix plays, take Oregon. If he doesn't, I still take Oregon, just because it's a home game and it's going to be sort of a difficult atmosphere for Utah to be successful in.
So I was lucky enough to get tipped off on Wednesday that there was a really good shot that Bo Nix wasn't going to play. And then there was the media availability session in Eugene on Wednesday, where the players started to not so subtly leak it out that it was even more than insinuating that Bo Nix wasn't going to play. There was an interview where Chris Hudson more or less just stated that Bo Nix wasn't going to play. He was like, well, yeah, with Bo being down, it's next man up with Ty Thompson coming in. And, and then the coach, Lanning, he wouldn't outright say it, but, they said, if Bo's out, who's going to be starting? And he would say, the Ty Thompson. And there was a couple other players where it was just super telling quotes. But I mean, it's gone beyond the rumor stage there. I would be, at this point, from what I've heard, I would be pretty surprised if Bo Nix is starting. I think it's going to be Ty Thompson. And it's not just what I'm hearing. The market on Wednesday night into Thursday afternoon, it's telling you something, because it was Oregon minus was it 3 or 3.5?
It was higher than that. I think I saw it at 4 or 5.
And it's switched all the way now to Utah minus, is it what, 2 or 2.5, like whatever it is?
I think it was 1.5. Hold on.
Well, it's at a lot of most books it's 2 right now. There's other books where it's Utah minus 2.5. But from all those indications, market indication, what I'm hearing, et cetera, what the players are saying, what Lanning's insinuating, all that stuff is telling you that Ty Thompson's going to be starting. Again, I would be stunned if Bo Nix is starting. Either way, I was taking Utah in this game. Either way, this was a game that I had big circle on Utah going back to the summer. I think Utah matches up well in this one either way. For me, this is a styles make fights kind of a thing, like talking about like UFC. Think about the teams that Oregon has struggled with this year and, that sort of a thing. Oregon is more of your sort of finesse team. And then Utah, it's more of your sort of rough and tumble team. Utah plays the 2 tight end thing. They have the downhill running deal, and the run first, yada, yada. Georgia has the 2 tight end deal, and they have the physical run first thing. And you saw how much problems that gave the Oregon defense. Obviously, Utah is not nearly as talented as Georgia. I'm not saying that they are, but in the same way, they have the physical offense where they put more poundage out there, and they're extremely efficient, and that gives Oregon, the ton of problems, whatever. And then the Utah, the only team that has beaten USC so far, sort of another finesse team, that was Utah. So I don't think that even with Bo Nix, I don't think that Utah was a good matchup for Oregon. So I think you have that. And then now that you have to put Ty Thompson out there for what I believe is his first career start, you have to start him against this Utah defense. Not good for Ty Thompson. Ty Thompson was he was a good recruit. He was a high recruit, whatever. But this is not what you want to have him for his first career start. It's just not a good spot because it's also an enormous game. It's not only a good defense, it's an enormous game. And then just speaking like to the matchups on the field, Utah, super duper well-rounded team, top 25 SP plus, both offense and defense. Oregon is more your lopsided team. They have the top 3 offense when they're at full strength, SP plus, but they have the 59th defense. And that defense, any good offense can have it. Obviously, like Washington just ripped them up last week. Utah's defense, where you can get them is they give up a ton of explosive plays. They rank 128th ISO PPP. But even with Bo Nix, Oregon's offense doesn't generate explosive plays. They ranked 85th ISO PPP. The Ducks did. Oregon's offense is super efficient when Nix is playing. They rank number 1 in that. But that's what Utah's defense is way better at addressing. And then meanwhile, Utah's offense is also super efficient. Number 7 success rate, number 4 in efficiency. And they're about to face one of the Power Five's most generous defenses in both those categories. Oregon's defense ranks number 97 in success rate, number 110 in efficiency. I just think Utah is going to do whatever they want on offense, and I think that the Utah defense is going to be able to not shut down Oregon's offense with Ty Thompson, but certainly put the clamps on it. I'm absolutely laying less than a field goal with Utah in this game. So we disagree on that one. We disagree. So moving on to our questions in the last few minutes that we have left, Eder Miranda asks us, Wisconsin versus Nebraska. I'll be quick on this one. Nebraska has the horrid run defense. And I just think categorically that makes them a terrible matchup against Wisconsin. So I absolutely could not bet on Nebraska in that game. So for me, it'd be Wisconsin or pass.
Braylon Allen over 0.5 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah,
take it. It's minus 120. You're gonna lay odds, but take it. I mean, he's rushed for 233 yards against them last season, 3 touchdowns. He's coming off a game where he didn't score. He's only done that once in his career. Go back-to-back games without a touchdown. So take Braylon Allen to score a touchdown on the ground, and take Wisconsin.
Yeah. And the Braylon Allen stuff, I'd be going over on all of his props. Colby Verkateren asks us, Auburn minus 5.5, home against Western Kentucky. He said they have looked better under Cadillac Williams. I really like Auburn today. Colby, they're actually one of my top 10 best bets this week. A couple different reasons. First of all, I think they match up well against Western Kentucky. Western Kentucky is another one of those sort of matchup specific teams that I was talking about, sort of similar like Middle Tennessee, where you can sort of handicap them easier because of they have the clearly defined strengths and weaknesses on both offense and defense. With Western Kentucky, they with their air raid offense, they throw all the time and they don't run well and they don't run often. With Auburn, their defense has been down this year, but the reason why is because their run defense is atrocious. Anybody can run on Auburn easily, but Auburn's pass defense is actually good. Auburn can, and they across the formation, they have a deep secondary as well. Auburn's pass defense is going to be able to shut down Western Kentucky, but Western Kentucky cannot take advantage of the one Achilles heel of, and then the enormous Achilles heel of that Auburn defense. So you have that going for you on the one side. Meanwhile, on the other side, Western Kentucky, they have a good pass defense, but Auburn can't throw. They're not going to try to throw. Where Western Kentucky's defense is bad, it's the run defense. Robbie Ashford and Tank Bigsby and whatever, they can at least, slam into it and they're going to get yards. And then the other thing is this game means very little for Western Kentucky. It's this one-off non-conference game. Next week is where it means something for Western Kentucky because they still got a shot to get into the conference USA title game, but they got to win next week and they got to get help. But for Auburn, this game means a ton because they're 4-6. They need to win this game to keep their dim bowl hopes alive. It also means a ton for Cadillac Williams. I don't think that he has a shot at the long-term Auburn job, but if he keeps winning and they keep playing competitively, as they have these past couple of weeks, like you mentioned, he's going to get on those short lists for, I think, nearby G5 openings. So I do like Auburn. I'm going to be laying those points. Mike, do you have any quick thoughts on that one?
Yeah, Auburn. I like Auburn's rushing attack in the matchup. They're just too strong on the ground to Western Kentucky to handle.
2K asks us, you've hit on Thor's Jayhawks and they're most likely went nice 2K. But what about, he wants to know about your BC Eagles, Farrell. Think they can cover the 20.5 and any sneaky podcast parlay today, guys. Farrell, I'll let you take it away on the BC game.
Yeah, they can cover 20.5. I mean, this is a rivalry game for BC, not for Notre Dame. They surprised me last week, pulling off the upset against NC State. This is a very young team, very, very young team. The offensive line's been decimated, but they're believing in each other. So I really think that I think BC can cover the 20.5. They're not going to win, but Notre Dame doesn't blow anybody out, really, in my opinion. I do have a prop here. Michael Mayer is 52.5 yards. That's his over for receiving. He's going to go over that. They're going to target him a lot. BC's middle defense, they're not a bad defensive team against the run and the pass, believe it or not. Middle defense susceptible. So I think he's going to get those 52.5 yards. And if I had to bet, I would take BC plus the 20.5, but they're going to lose, probably by 17.
So I don't have the time to put all the parlays in to give you guys what the exact odds are, but I will give you the parlay, so you can just plug them in on your own. I'll tell you what mine would be. So this is going to be a 5-leg money line parlay if you guys are all ready. So I'm going to go these are all money lines, okay? And there's going to be two underdogs and there's going to be a couple short favorites. So we're going to go the Utah money line. We're going to go the Utah money line. We're going to go the Auburn money line. We're going to go the UCLA money line. That's one of the underdogs. We're going to go the Middle Tennessee money line. That's another one of the underdogs. And then we're going to go the UNC money line against Georgia Tech. That's the one big favorite that we're going to do to juice it. So 5 money line parlay. Okay.
Yeah,
then,
we're already over time. One quick thing.
Yeah.
Navy's up 7-0 already. So good for us in our pick there.
Just one quick one, and then we'll close up shop. Mike Huseman asks, after last week's huge emotional win, can Washington cover 30.5 against Colorado, or does the dead cat bounce, claim another victim in Kalen DeBoer? Mike, do you have any quick thoughts on that before we get out of here?
Washington's good. Colorado's horrible. Michael Penix throws for 400 yards. They cover the 30.5 easily. Colorado's just abysmally bad.
And there you go. Guys, we are out of time as kickoff is upon us. We want to thank our title sponsor, DraftKings Sportsbook, again. Take advantage of their special offer today and be sure to use their promo code CFB Pros with a minimum $5 deposit when signing up for a new account for your free $50 bet. For Mike Farrell, I'm Thor Nystrom for Betting Pros. Good luck with your bets today and enjoy another glorious day of college football.